Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello everybody, how you doing? Today I wanted to do another little video here, basically talking a lot about Stephen mostly here today. I haven't been able to dig in a lot to the rest of the motion or a lot of the exhibits and everything just yet. Had some car trouble, was replacing radiator and thermostat and temperature sensors on vehicles, so didn't get to dig as deep into that as I'd like. But was having some thoughts about the case, having some thoughts about some things going on, and wanted to go ahead and share some of those with everybody. One thing is that here on my channel, it's very important to me that the victims' families are respected. No matter what you think, no matter how strongly or how strongly you believe what you believe and all that, I believe that the victims' families deserve respect. And at least until you can prove otherwise. If you can prove that they're not a victim or the family of a victim, then it's just, for me, the victims' families are the ones that should matter the most here. It's kind of a big deal to me. It's the way I've always felt. And when I say victims' families, that's because I don't just think the Halbachs are a victim's family. They certainly are the family of a victim. They certainly, especially in terms of this case, they are the paramount victims, because there's no hope that they can get Teresa back. So they are the paramount victims, but there are also other victims in this case, and I'm going to go into later in this video why I essentially believe that, and that is the Averys and Dassies. They are victims. I believe they were manipulated, or if they weren't manipulated, they were made to look questionable or those sort of things. So it's obvious when you look at this case that the state was playing games, and they were trying to adjust things, and they were kind of playing with the actual accounts and stuff. It's pretty clear when you look at things. So the thing is that these are all victims' families in terms of my channel. So I'm not about making crazy accusations, and I'm not saying things, when I say crazy, I mean when you make a serious accusation and you seriously accuse somebody of something, you better have something substantial to back it up than just your own opinion, essentially. So that's why, and I mean, I had somebody recently on my channel saying after the recent video, which deals with Zellner's latest filings, which we're going to get into here. But this person came on saying, oh, you accuse Scott, and you accuse Bobby, and you accuse Ryan. You're no better. You're no better than what you say that they did to Avery with the press conference or whatever. And I'm just like, I looked at it and just said, when did I? First off, I had already spoken to Barb about the video and explained to her that for me it was more about Fassbender and Kratz and the fact that they were holding something back that could have been helpful to Stephen's lawyers. For me, that was the paramount issue and the paramount thing. I was just reporting mainly the content in the brief. So I basically explained to her, and she understands what I'm doing here. She understands that I'm not trying to hurt her family, or the Averys, or the Halbachs, for that matter. And so she understands that I was just, getting the news across. And that news is that there was another suspect that could meet Denny. It's huge. It's why that CD was getting hit, but we'll get to that in a minute. Zellner's latest filing shows us that there was a CD containing the forensic report of what was on the Dassey computer back in 2005 that was done by Mr. Veely at Grand Chute Sheriff's Department or Police Department, whatever it was. And so the trickiness of it is how the games that Fassbender and Kratz were playing to make it seem like they were giving over this information, but at the same time holding back the thing that they would have been able to instantly view. And not only that, but there's 7 DVDs that would have required special programming to access and read and all that stuff, but it's also sent over in the biggest mountain of discovery that the prosecution sent over to Stevens' lawyers. So it's in that biggest mountain, so they got to, first of all, go through the mountain to get to them. Then find out, oh, well, we need this special program to be able to, oh, okay, so let's... By the time they would have been able to get at anything on those DVDs, it was too late. The Denny motion would have needed to have been filed already, and they didn't have enough time. So it's like this whole show of they're trying to act like they were given the information, and like these games that they're playing, because the CD would have been instantly viewable. Had they turned that over, it would have been instantly viewable, and Dean and Jerry would have seen exactly everything that was on that computer, and they would have seen it before they had to file their Denny motion. So to me, pretty huge development. Whether or not Bobby did it, I'm not here to speculate, people, and you shouldn't either. And here's why. Okay, if you've ever used the argument that it's unfair that Stephen was denied his presumption of innocence because of the press conference or because of the prejudice against the Averys in the area, whatever it is, but mainly like the press conference and things like that where it robs somebody of their presumption of innocence. If you've ever used that argument for Stephen, you gotta respect the presumption of innocence for those people that are going to be getting named in Zellner's upcoming briefs and motions and things like that. It's got to apply to them too. I mean, you don't have to listen to me, but I would like to think that people out there are level-headed and don't want to be hypocrites, right? They deserve their presumption of innocence. If the evidence mounts up and a jury finds them guilty, fine. But keep in mind, they are entitled to a presumption of innocence just like Stephen was supposed to be entitled to. You know? And so if you care about Stephen's presumption of innocence, you got to care about everybody else's presumption of innocence. Even Ryan's. Look at the way that I've named my Ryan Hillegas videos. For example, here. Look at the way that I've named them. The first one was called Ryan Hillegas is quite a suspicious fellow. There's no accusation there. And you can watch the video. All I do is point out the weird stuff about him. Okay? Then there's another one. Ryan Hillegas is dodgy as hell. It's about when he's on the stand and when he's being asked questions and he's just like, I don't recall, I don't remember, I don't know, da-da-da-da-da, I can't recall. You know, doesn't remember the lead investigator in this whole entire investigation. He doesn't know him. Wiegert? Nah, never heard of him. When he met him on the first night of this investigation and stuff, and it's just like, these are the weird things. This is what I point out because because they are so strange. I point them out. Then look at my third video about Ryan, you got some splaining to do. None of these videos are making an accusation. None of these videos, in none of those videos am I personally saying Ryan's a killer. But in the one about Ryan's got splaining to do, I am reporting on one of Zellner's briefs. And that brief is suggesting that he is the killer. But nowhere are you ever going to see where I've done that. That's because I don't throw around accusations like that. Now, Miss Zellner has, you know, investigators that she pays well, experts that she pays well, and she knows what's going on a lot better than I do. So I just continue to wait for the information to come out. And I'll tell you what, I'm perfectly happy to wait for it when gems come out like this, where we can totally see Fassbender and Kratz playing games with the evidence, because they know that if they turn it over, they, number one, give the defense a suspect that meets Denny, and number two, takes out one of their biggest witness, really, placing Teresa at the scene of the crime. So you can imagine how they didn't want that and why they tried to hide it, but wanted to, at the same time, wanted to appear to be forthright and handing it over on these DVDs that would have required the special program and all that. I mean, it's really truly ridiculous when you think about it. And I'm just, the part I'm super stoked about here is the fact that it's getting at Kratz and Fassbender, because you all know how much I dislike Mr. Fassbender. You all know, if you've watched enough of any of my videos, you know that I don't like him. He somehow thinks that when Brendan buckles and flip-flops and tells him what he wants to hear, he somehow thinks that that's Brendan resisting. I mean, the guy is thick. So, yeah. So to see those two basically getting raked over the coals here, or hopefully being able to see, because there was an interesting bit in that motion where she talked about they wouldn't need Veely because it's pretty obvious that both Kratz and Fassbender have both seen what's on the CD and I guess the DVDs and stuff, so they don't need to bring Veely in to testify about this because they can just ask Kratz and Fassbender. Yes, I like it. That means she's going to be able to have them up on the stand. I love it. That's great. We don't need Veely. Let's get Kratz and Fassbender up there. The next thing I want to go into now is talking about, you know, how things get contentious. Like, for instance, there's another side to this case, really. There's people that have similar feelings, but because they have certain disagreements, things can get a little bit out of hand. And for example, the relationship between guilters and say truthers, they say, you know, as they call them, or supporters of Stephen and Brendan. You know, I know when I first came into all this, I saw those people as, you know, like just these horrible people. Like, how could they possibly, you know, think that, you know, what they think and all that stuff. You know, that was naive of me at the time. But I was new to this. You know, what I came to find out is that those people they're just normal people too. They just look at it and they just see it a little bit differently. They just, you know, for whatever reason. There could be a lot of reasons. They could, number one, they could be in law enforcement, or maybe be in a family that's very law enforcement, has a lot of law enforcement in it, and they all just see it like in a certain way, you know, kind of through the blue lens. You know, I mean, that's a possibility. There's also a possibility that maybe they've been victimized by crime and stuff, and so they have a real tough on crime kind of attitude, which can also lead to minimizing whether or not a person got their due process, or whether or not they were treated fairly and got a fair trial. These types of things can cause people to move past that. It's understandable. It's perfectly understandable. And this happens all throughout this. I mean, there's obviously, you know, subtle differences, but I'll tell you what, there's one thing that's kind of interesting. Do you know that, like, even most of those people who believe that say Stephen is guilty, out of all those people, most of them believe that Brendan's innocent. Most of them, over 50%, I would say, believe Brendan is innocent. Now, that tells you that they care. They see what happened to Brendan, and even they're going, you know, even if they look at the thing with Stephen and go, no, you know what, I still think he did it. They look at what happened to Brendan, and their conscience informs them, and they call it like they see it as the absolute travesty that it is. So that tells you these are just good people, same sensibilities as, you know, you or I and everything. They just, for whatever reason, see it just a little bit differently than you or I, or you or him, you and him, or him and her, right? So what I would say is that moving forward here with what's going to be going on, I mean, seriously, Zellner's going to be naming more people in her motions that you know, it's going to cause a little bit of controversy. I hope everybody tries to be kind. Try to remember to be kind a little bit, at least, you know. So, but what I wanted to also talk about is, let us not, you know, in this most recent filing by Zellner, let us not forget about this motion to compel that was filed. Okay, I find this motion to compel extremely interesting. Did a video about it, not a lot of views, but I find this extremely interesting. This, you know, the fact that the state, the DOJ, started an investigation after Zellner filed her motion for post-conviction relief. They started an investigation. And then, which I find, number one, I find that interesting because the whole thing was eventually shot down by Judge Sukowitz as if it had no merit, right? But yet, the DOJ and Fallon or whoever were reading that and seeing something, and they were reacting to it. In my opinion, that's what happened here. Can't wait to see what it is that they were doing, personally. So I just, wanted to talk a little bit about that motion to compel because I find that particularly interesting. Can't wait to see what's going to be coming of that. But then, let's also think about the same thing here, where we got Zellner last year in July or June of last year, filing her motion for post-conviction relief or whatever for Steven Avery. That 1,000-page, whole big, deal, right? And then soon after that, DOJ opens an investigation, calls for the Dassey computer tower to come in. Either, I don't know if they got a warrant or what happened there exactly. I'm actually keen to hear the details on that. But they get that computer back. They start a new investigation. Why is that? Then let's think about some other things here. First person we had that got the heck out of Dodge, pretty much right after MAM came out, was Link. He retired and boom, he was gone. He sailed off into the sunset. Then think about it. Since the filing last year, we've had Andy Colburn retire. We've had Sheriff Herman announced that he's not going to be running for re-election as Manitowoc County Sheriff. So that's interesting. But okay, so there's just a couple guys. They happen to be big names from the documentary, right? People that, a lot of people feel were involved in some way. But then, y'all remember Mr. Griesbach? Mr. Michael Griesbach? He actually became the prosecutor for Manitowoc after Vogel left. And if you remember, he was the one that was helping Stephen with his original wrongful conviction. He helped get Stephen out, was trying to help Stephen, petition the state to look at the case and determine, that there was, some bad practices, going on that they need to correct or something. But it ended up coming back. We all know Peg Lautenschlager comes back with it was a breakdown of communication. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, that's Michael Griesbach. Well, some of you, I don't know if you know, I know many of you do, but in a talk he was giving at a college one time to some students, he actually said, because they asked him about the Avery case or whatever, and he actually said if any evidence was planted in the Avery case, that he would quit his job. He said that. It's on a YouTube video you can find on YouTube. But he actually said it. And guess what? Recently, he stepped down as prosecutor there in Manitowoc. He's now a defense lawyer. Made a big deal about announcing it on Facebook and everything that he was now transitioning from being a prosecutor to becoming a defense lawyer. And I was just like, maybe this whole thing with the CD and all this stuff, maybe this is why a bunch of people are retiring now and getting out of Dodge. Just wondering, because he always said he would quit if there was actually evidence planted. Maybe when he saw about what was going on with this CD and how Ken Kratz and Fassbender were basically kind of hiding it and playing games and what all the things that they're doing here, that maybe he decided, maybe his conscience decided that just wasn't really acceptable, and that's why he now transitioned into becoming a defense lawyer. I mean, I don't know. All I know is he originally said if there was planting in the Avery case, he would quit his job, and he has recently done so. So, along with all the other, things. Now, of course, we do have Mark Wiegert. Mr. Mark Wiegert has actually stepped up his game. He actually wants to be the head sheriff of Calumet County. In time, he's going to be known as, the prime example of how you do, of how not to interrogate a kid with limited mental abilities. Him and Tom Fassbender are gonna be the poster children for that. So I hope Calumet County citizens take that into mind before they elect him. Yeah, because it may not be tomorrow, may not be the next day, but I'd say within the next year or two, he is going to end up being very embarrassed about what him and Tom Fassbender did to Brendan. Like I said, ain't going to happen overnight, but Brendan's got an army behind him. The tape looks bad. Anybody that looks at that tape, most people that look at that tape, the lion's share of people that look at that tape, look at it and go, that is an absolute travesty. That's absolutely unacceptable. If they did that to my kid, I would want to kill them. Yeah, that's where they're gonna be soon. So if you elect Mark Wiegert as your sheriff there, just keep that in mind, because that's what he's gonna be in a very short time. He's gonna be the poster child for what not to do when interrogating a mentally limited youth, juvenile, however you want to look at it. So that's kind of, to me, what's interesting here. A restarted investigation. People retiring and stepping down and getting away from the whole thing. I mean, I don't know. Think what you will. But I was just having these thoughts, folks, as I was working on my car. Thought I'd share them all with you, and also encourage everybody to try to be kind. Try to be kind and try to respect the presumption of innocence. Just because, and I understand, just because Zelna writes it in emotion, and I'm not saying that the dots she's connecting are completely wrong. I'm just saying the dots connect, and then it puts a white hot spotlight on Fassbender and Kratz. And for me, that is the most important point. Anyway, that's about it for today, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.